Okay, so picture this with me. It's the summer of 1999. The turn of the millennium is just breathing down everyone's neck. There's that specific kind of late 90s anxiety in the air, you know?
Like UK, yeah. The computer bug.
Exactly. Well, the computers all crash as the world's going to end.
Uh-huh.
But for the entities we're talking about today, that anxiety isn't really about Y2K. It's not about software bugs.
No. It's about extinction.
It really is. It's about what the sources call the siege of the East Coast.
Right. And we are looking at a huge stack of accounts here, and they all center on this massive crisis event. We're really zooming in on the city of Baltimore.
Which at this specific moment in history is basically the last dam holding back a flood.
A flood of absolute chaos, violence, and, well, monsters fighting other monsters.
Right. We're diving deep into the accounts that are all labeled clan novel Ventrue. And I have to say, reading through this whole thing, it feels like The Godfather meets a war movie.
That's a really good way to put it.
But, everyone involved just happens to be a vampire.
It's a very apt comparison. Because what we're looking at here, it isn't just a monster story, not at all. It's a political thriller. It's about hierarchy, it's about leadership, and it's about what happens when the people in charge—
The Ventrue.
The Ventrue, yeah, the so-called kings— what happens when they realize they might not be as in control as they've always believed they are?
Okay, so let's set the stage properly for everyone. We have the Camarilla. These are the gentlemen vampires, if you want to call them that.
The established.
The establishment, exactly. They have rules, they have traditions, they have the masquerade to hide from humans, they wear the nice suits. And then you have the Sabbat.
The Sabbat are the zealots, the fundamentalists. They're the chaotic, incredibly violent sect that believes vampires should rule the world openly. And in the summer of '99, they are just on a tear.
A bloody tear, yeah. They've already rolled through Atlanta. Washington, D.C. has just fallen. They are marching north.
And Baltimore is next on the menu.
So our deep dive today is going to unpack how this really rigid hierarchy of the vampiric elite tries to manage absolute, total chaos. We're going to look at the cost of leadership, the sheer brutality of maintaining order, and this huge geopolitical shift caused by something called the Gangrel Exodus.
And it really forces you to ask a central question. When the world is ending, do you band together with your allies? Or do you start stabbing them in the back just to make sure you have the best seat on the lifeboat?
That is the question. So let's jump right into the first scene because it sets the tone so perfectly. We're at the Baltimore Harbor. It's night, obviously. And we have the arrival of a refugee.
Very important refugee, Victoria Ash.
Victoria Ash. She's a Toreador from the clan of artists, the socialites, the beauties, and she's fleeing Atlanta, which has already fallen to the Sabbat. Waiting for her on this grimy dock is Prince Garlett.
Alexander Garlett, the Ventrue Prince of Baltimore. And the dynamic here is fascinating right from the jump. You have Garlett, who shows up in a limousine.
A limo to a dock.
To a working dock, yeah. He's described like an English lord surveying his manor. He's standing there, completely unconcerned by the grime and the salt, because in his mind, he owns every inch of this city.
And Victoria, she's hiding out on this freighter, the El Vigoroso. She's in the captain's quarters. Yeah. And the text makes it clear she's terrified, isn't she? But she's hiding it so well.
Oh, she is deeply traumatized. We find out later she was held captive by the flesh crafters of the Sabbath, so she's seen horrors. But Victoria is, above all else, a master manipulator. She refuses to let Garlett see the fear.
No, she puts on a gown, she puts on gloves, she plays the part of the visiting dignitary.
Not the desperate refugee begging for shelter.
There's this one detail in that meeting, though, that it really crept me out. Garlett gives her a gift. A locket.
Yes. His dead wife's locket.
His dead wife's locket.
Yeah.
He puts it on her neck and thinks to himself, my love. He's projecting his dead mortal wife onto this vampire who just washed up on his shore. It's romantic in his head, maybe, but to anyone else, it is so deeply possessive.
It's the Ventrue mindset in a nutshell. They collect, they own. He sees her beauty, her prestige, and he wants to possess it. He wants to add her to his collection, keep her in his city.
But Victoria's playing a totally different game. Did you catch the thing she did before she even got off the boat? The game of chance?
Oh, the sailors. Yes. Let's unpack that because it's so revealing about her character.
It really is.
She's trying to decide whether to even stay in Baltimore or just keep running. So she decides to base this life or death decision on the number of sailors on the ship. If it's an odd number, she leaves. If it's even, she stays.
And she counts 14. An even number, so she stays.
But look in the logic there. She is terrified of being a pawn in the jihad, the great ancient game of the elders. She feels like everyone is trying to manipulate her. So what does she do? She introduces pure randomness into her decision-making.
You can't pull my strings if even I don't know what I'm going to do next.
Precisely. I'll base my survival on a coin flip, because then the puppet masters can't predict my move. It's a desperate gambit for a shred of agency.
That is wild. But then, right after this moment of her trying to escape manipulation, we see the reality of Ventrue leadership in action. Garlot introduces her to his child, Isaac.
The sheriff, yeah.
And Victoria does this whole clumsy, flirty seduction act to kind of disarm him, playing the ditz. But while this little social dance is happening, Garlot does something just horrific.
His ship.
The ship.
He turns to Isaac and just calmly orders the ship. Scuttled. Sunk.
Get the crew still on it? Those 14 sailors she just counted?
Yes. He casually tells Isaac to take the freighter out into the bay and sink it. 14 lives. Just gone. And why? To cover the tracks that Victoria Ash arrived in Baltimore.
That is just so cold.
It's efficiency over humanity. It's not that Garlot hates the sailors. He doesn't think about them at all. They are loose ends. They are a potential breach of the Masquerade.
The rule that vampires must remain hidden from humanity.
It's the central pillar of their entire society. And for a Ventrue prince, it's maintained through absolute ruthless brutality. To him, those 14 human lives are just the cost of doing business, not even a rounding error.
So Victoria enters Baltimore, and the first thing she witnesses is this casual act of mass murder committed by the man who just gave her his dead wife's locket.
Welcome to Baltimore.
Yeah. And she's taken to the Lord Baltimore Inn, which has been turned into this, a refugee camp for vampires?
Essentially, yes. It's supposed to be a conference, a council of war, but the sources describe it as just chaos. You have all these refugees from Atlanta, D.C., Charleston. Everyone is panicking,
Sure.
and you can see the factions forming immediately.
Right, you've got the anarchs and the Brujah, the rabble-rousers, the punks in the back yelling and stomping their feet, led by this guy Theo Bell.
Who can barely keep them in line.
Then you've got the Tremere, the warlocks, represented by this woman, Maria Chin. And she's just sitting there, stone-faced, refusing to share any information about her clan's losses.
Very secretive, typical Tremere. And then you have Garlot up at the front, trying to project this aura of calm, acting like everything is completely under control.
He's obsessed with the appearance of control, isn't he?
Totally. For the Ventrue, perception is reality. If he looks like he's in charge, then he is in charge. That's the entire philosophy. But then, reality crashes the party. Hard.
Isaac bursts in, his own sheriff.
His own child, yeah.
Yeah.
In front of everyone.
And he shouts the news. He announces publicly that Washington, D.C. has officially fallen. There's gunfire in the streets. The Sabbat is effectively at their doorstep.
And the room just explodes. Total panic. The anarchs run off to go find a fight. The other refugees just despair. The whole illusion of control that Garlot was building just shatters in an instant.
But the most telling moment, the part that really defines Garlot, happens afterward. On his ship, the USS Apollo.
Oh, God. This scene, this is where we see what happens when you embarrass a prince.
Because that's what Isaac did, right? He didn't just deliver bad news, he delivered it in public.
He undermined Garlot's authority. He made the prince look weak, like he wasn't in the know. So Garlot has him chained up in the engine room, and he calls for Malachi, his gangrel enforcer, his scourge.
And Malachi has a pair of wire cutters.
He does. And Garlot orders him to snip off Isaac's fingertips, one by one, dropping them into a tin cup.
Just the sound of it described in the text. The snip.
And Garlot's dialogue is so chilling. He speaks so softly, so kindly. Now, Isaac, how do we avoid this in the future? Snip. Patience is the lesson, my boy. Snip. It's this terrifying dichotomy.
It's abuse. It's that classic, distinct dynamic. Look what you made me do.
Exactly. It highlights the absolute fragility of the prince's ego. He would rather physically torture his own son, his own right-hand man, than admit to a single moment of public weakness.
And this is the leadership that's supposed to save the entire East Coast, a man who's more concerned with decorum and appearances than the fact that an army of monsters is burning down the city next door.
It's a terrifying thought.
But Garlot isn't the only leader in town, is he? We have another major player arrive. Jan Peter Zoom.
Yes. Now, Jan is. He's a different animal. He's a Ventrue, just like Garlot. But he's from Europe. He's old world. He represents the inner circle, the absolute top of the Camarilla pyramid.
He's been sent by the legendary Hardestadt himself.
One of the founders of the Camarilla, yeah. Jan has been sent to fix the American mess.
He's the corporate fixer sent from headquarters because the local branch office is on fire.
And he has exactly that attitude, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He looks at the American vampires, Garland included, as incompetent, loud, messy children, basically.
He crashes that same chaotic conference and immediately puts everyone in their place. Victoria Ash is trying to rally the troops, give a big speech.
And Jan just cuts her off at the knees. He doesn't shout. He just asks quietly, "By what authority do you speak?" He questions her right to lead versus the absolute authority of the inner circle. And she had no answer. He just shuts her down.
He's so arrogant, but he's also... The source shows us his internal monologue. He's completely overwhelmed, doesn't he?
He is. He's stressed. He's carrying the weight of expectations from Europe. He's juggling a dozen spinning plates. And he's starting to realize that the situation on the ground is far, far worse than anyone in the old world understands.
And to prove that exact point, we have the assassination of Maria Chin.
Right. The Tremere representative. This whole scene was just so cinematic, so sudden.
Victoria is in an elevator with her. They're having a conversation, just a bit of political maneuvering. And suddenly...
A hatch opens in the ceiling of the elevator. Baroque drops down.
And zip, her head is just gone.
Just like that. Decapitated. In the prince's own hotel, the designated safe zone, the Elysium.
And Victoria, what does she do? She screams her head off.
Which is probably the only reason she's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
The assassin vanishes. But let's analyze this for a second. This isn't a frontal assault.
It's targeted strike.
Exactly. The Sabbat isn't just marching armies like in some medieval war. They are using special ops tactics. They are surgically dismantling the Camarilla leadership. Maria Chin was the key Tremere liaison. Now she's dead.
It also tells you the Tremere is being hunted specifically.
They are. And it breeds this intense paranoia. If you can't be safe in the elevator of the Elysium, where can you possibly be safe?
Nowhere. And Jan Pieterszoon finds that out the hard way, too. He goes for a limo ride, partly to clear his head, and partly, the text implies, to escape some of this building sexual tension with Victoria Ash.
And he gets ambushed.
Not by a normal Sabbat pack, by a war ghoul.
This monstrous rhino unicorn thing.
A Timis flesh-crafted monstrosity, yeah. A biological tank. It just clouds into the limo, completely destroys it. Jan's driver, his assistant, they're killed instantly.
And Jan, this high-born, blue-blooded European aristocrat who is used to private jets and boardrooms, is suddenly forced to run for his life through the grimy streets of Baltimore.
This sequence really strips him down to his basics, doesn't it? He's injured, he's bleeding vitae, he's being chased by a Sabbat handler and some kind of bloodhound creature.
He ends up on a freighter in the harbor.
Yeah.
And this is where we see that cold venture morality again. The same thing we saw with Garland.
The incident with the young sailor.
Yes. Unpack that. Because at first, it seems like he's trying to save the kid, right?
Yeah, he stumbles into the engine room. A young sailor finds him, helps him hide. Jan knows the hound is coming, and he needs a distraction. So he tells the boy, "Run, hit the fire alarm, get out of here."
Which sounds heroic on the surface. Run, boy, save yourself.
But he knows. He knows the sudden movement will trigger the dog. He is deliberately throwing that boy to the wolves, literally, to buy himself 3 seconds to escape.
And it works. The hound goes after the sailor, and Jan uses the distraction to drop a pallet of sugar on his pursuer, crushing them both.
It's that exact same cold calculus Garland used with the sailors on the El Vigoroso. My life is important, your life is not, therefore you will die so that I can live.
It is the core of their survival strategy. But Jan's night isn't over. He hits an even lower point. He's cornered in an alley by a traitor, a vampire named Blaine, a Ventrue who defected to the Sabbat.
An anti-tribute?
Yes. And Jan is wounded, he's starving for blood, he's out of options, he's about to meet his final death.
And then, bam! Theo Bell shows up.
Theo Bell, the Brujah Archon, the ultimate enforcer of the Camarilla. He just steps out of the shadows, knocks the crossbow away from Blaine.
And crushes his skull. Just like a walnut.
An incredibly violent, brutal rescue.
Yeah.
And then Jan does something that shows how far he's fallen.
He feeds on blame.
He feeds on the dead Sabbat vampire. He drinks the vitae from the corpse.
That's a taboo, right? It's considered disgusting.
It is deeply degrading. This is a man who prides himself on his lineage, his impeccable taste. He feeds on blue bloods, on the elite. And here he is, on his knees in a filthy alley, slurping blood from a traitor's shattered skull just to survive.
It completely strips away that veneer of the gentleman vampire.
Absolutely. Underneath the bespoke suit and the centuries of etiquette, they're all just hungry beasts, and the war is forcing that beast to the surface.
Speaking of feeding and stripping away that veneer,
Yeah.
We absolutely have to talk about Estelle.
Yes. This is maybe the most disturbing subplot in the entire dossier. It tells you everything you need to know about Jan.
He's stressed. He's terrified of failing Hardestadt, of failing the inner circle. So he has this ritual, this coping mechanism with a human hotel maid.
Her name is Estelle. And what he does is he engineers this scenario where he captures her in his hotel room. He terrifies her. He makes her think her life is in danger from some outside threat.
And then he acts as her savior.
He acts as her savior from the threat that he himself created. He comforts her, and then he feeds on her, not just her blood, but her raw terror. And after he's done, he uses his powers to wipe her memory of the event.
And the next night,
He does it all over again.
it's absolutely horrific. He is using a human being as a reusable stress ball.
It completely deconstructs that noble persona he projects. Jan sees himself as a general, a strategist, fighting a war for civilization. But in private, he is a predator, systematically torturing an innocent girl because he can't handle his own anxiety.
He tells himself he's protecting her from the real monsters, but he is the monster in that room.
It's a perfect, horrifying cycle of abuse. And it mirrors the dynamic we saw with Garlet and Isaac, doesn't it? It seems like the Ventrue can't exist without finding someone weaker to dominate.
Domination is their entire thing.
It is their curse. They have to be in control. So when they lose control of the big picture, the Sabbat invasion, they clamp down even harder on the individuals around them. Isaac gets his fingers cut off. Estelle gets her mind violated night after night.
Which brings us to another victim of this dynamic, Finn, Garlet's other child.
Finn is the real tragedy of this story, I think. He's young for a vampire.
Huh.
He's still capable of, well, love. He's in love with a human girl, Marina.
And he's scared for her. He sees the war coming, he sees the chaos in the streets, and he thinks the only way to save her, to protect her, is to turn her into a vampire, to embrace her.
So he goes to Garlet, his sire, and asks for permission. But he does it in public, at the council meeting.
Oh, Finn, bad move. Terrible move.
The worst possible move. And the text notes that he was egged on by Victoria Ash, who's probably just trying to stir the pot and create a little chaos.
And Garlet.
Yeah?
Well, Garlet reacts exactly as we would expect a man like him to react.
He doesn't just say no. He has Finn seized, and he stakes him. He paralyzes him with a wooden stake through the heart.
Right in front of his siblings, his other children.
And he says that same word again, patience. That's the lesson.
It's just so sad because Finn is the only one in that room trying to act out of something resembling love, as misguided as it might be. He wants to save someone, and the system, personified by his father, just crushes him for it.
The system cannot abide sentiment. Sentiment is a weakness. And in a siege, Garlet believes weakness gets you and everyone around you killed. That's his logic. But his control is already slipping.
How so?
His other child, Katrina, sees what he does to Finn and she runs. She just flees the city. So in his effort to maintain absolute control over his house, Garlet is actually fracturing it. He's driving his own children away.
So while all this family drama is exploding, the actual war is getting worse. And the council Jan, Garlet, this guy Vittel, who was the Prince of D.C. before it fell.
And Theobald.
And Theobald, right. They come up with a plan. A strategy to save Baltimore.
Strategic sacrifices. That's the term they use.
This is heavy stuff. They basically look at a map of the East Coast. They see Buffalo, New York. It's held by a Brujah prince. And they decide, we can't save it.
Oh, it's much worse than that. They don't just decide not to save it. They decide to use it as bait.
Okay, explain the plan. It's pretty monstrous.
It is. They decide to trick the Prince of Buffalo. They'll tell him to create a massive army of new vampires to defend his city.
Yeah.
But they want him to create shovelheads.
Right. Explain shovelheads for us. That's a Sabbat tactic, isn't it?
Primarily, yes. It's the quickest, dirtiest way to make a vampire. You grab a human, hit them over the head with a shovel, drain their blood, force-feed them a little of yours, and bury them. When they claw their way out of the ground, they're insane, frenzied, and completely disposable. Cannon fodder.
And the Camarilla, the supposed good guys, are planning to do this.
They're planning to trick the Prince of Buffalo into doing it. They'll tell him, build a huge army. The show of force will scare the Sabbat away. But they know it won't.
They know the Sabbat will see it as a provocation and attack Buffalo.
Exactly. They are knowingly, deliberately sacrificing an entire city, all the vampires there, and all the humans who will be caught in the crossfire of this shovelhead army just to buy Baltimore a few more weeks of time.
That is just, it's morally bankrupt. There's no other word for it.
Victoria Ash agrees with you. When she hears the plan, she calls them out on it. She says, we might as well be the Sabbat.
She's right. If you're using mass murder and cannon fodder tactics to achieve your goals, what's the actual difference?
Well, the difference in the minds of Yan and Garlet is that they are wearing nicer suits while they do it. They're doing it for the greater good. It's the banality of evil. They're just looking at a map, moving pieces around. They've completely divorced themselves from the fact that those pieces are lives.
So the plan is in motion. Buffalo is doomed. And then, just as they've made this monstrous decision, the door to the council room crashes open, and everything, absolutely everything, changes.
This is the real turning point of the entire narrative. Section 4, the Gangrel Exodus.
Xavier walks in. And he's not just any vampire, he's the Gangrel Justicar, one of the 7 most powerful lawgivers in the entire Camarilla. He's a legend. And he looks wrong.
He looks terrified, and he's been maimed. His arm is described as being twisted like melted wax. Not broken, not torn, melted.
He had taken an army of Gangrel, the clan of warriors and shapeshifters, to fight the Sabbat head-on, but he says they found something else out there in the dark.
He describes it, he calls it the Eye.
The Eye? What is that?
He says they found an ancient evil. He uses the word antediluvian.
Okay, let's pause right there. We need context for the listener. What in this world is an antediluvian?
So, in the vampire mythology, they are the founders of the 13 clans, the grandchildren of Cain himself. They are beings of immense, almost godlike power. Basically, they're eldritch abominations that have been sleeping for millennia.
And the official stance of the Camarilla, the party line that Jan and Garlet believe, is what?
That they are myths, fairy tales. Boogeymen used to scare young vampires. They officially do not exist.
Why? Why deny their existence so forcefully?
Because if the antediluvians are real, then the vampire apocalypse Gehenna is also real. And if Gehenna is real, then all this political maneuvering, all the princes and their domains and their titles, it's all meaningless. It means they're all just juice boxes for angry gods who are waking up.
So Xavier, a Justicar, one of their own, comes in half-melted, scream, "I saw an ancient, it destroyed my entire army with a single glare." And what do Johan Peterzoon and Alexander Garlet do?
They deny it, flat out.
They gaslight him.
They have to. Their entire worldview depends on it. Jan Peterzoon, specifically, his sire, Hardestadt, was one of the architects of the Camarilla, and he built it on a foundation of skepticism towards these myths. Jan cannot believe Xavier. He says it's a legend. It must have been a Sabbat trick, a powerful war ghoul.
But Xavier is standing right there with a melted arm. The proof is literally attached to his body.
And that is the absolute tragedy of the moment. Xavier looks at their faces, hears their denial, and he realizes that the Ventrue will never, ever accept the truth. They are fighting a political war over cities and influence. He has just seen the face of their extinction, and he is fighting a supernatural apocalypse. They aren't even on the same battlefield.
So he drops the bombshell.
He looks Jan in the eye and he says, the union is dissolved.
Chills. Just chill.
He pulls the entire Gangrel clan out of the Camarilla. With a single sentence, the alliance that has stood for 500 years is broken.
What does that actually mean for the war effort, in practical terms?
It's catastrophic. It is an extinction-level event for the Camarilla. The Gangrel are their scouts, their wilderness warriors, their shock troops. They just lost their entire military arm and their eyes and ears in a single night.
All because the Ventures were too arrogant, too rigid in their thinking to listen to a warning about the end of the world.
It shifts the balance of power permanently. The Camarilla is suddenly smaller, weaker, and completely blind in a world that is getting darker by the minute.
And there's such an irony there. They were willing to sacrifice the entire city of Buffalo to buy time.
But their refusal to believe Xavier cost them the Gangrel, which makes every city vulnerable. Their skepticism just cost them infinitely more than their ruthlessness could have ever gained them.
So Xavier storms out, the Gangrel are gone, the council is in shock, and then the inevitable news comes from Buffalo.
It fell. Of course it fell.
And the sacrifice plan, it was a complete failure.
It was worse than a failure. Theo Bell confirms it. The Sabbat knew it was a bluff all along. They didn't even slow down. They rolled right over Buffalo's shovelhead army and took the city without breaking a sweat.
Which means there's a spy.
The leak.
Huh.
Jan realizes it instantly. Someone at that council table, one of the handful of leaders who came up with a plan, betrayed them.
So who are the suspects?
It could be anyone. Victoria. She hated the plan from the start. Garland himself. Maybe he sold out Buffalo to make a deal with the Sabbat to keep them away from Baltimore. Maybe it was Vitel. The paranoia just skyrockets. The leadership isn't just fighting the enemy outside anymore. They're looking sideways at each other, wondering who has the knife.
And in the middle of all this disaster and paranoia, the Tremere finally decide to show up again.
Ailing Sturbridge. She's the Tremere regent from New York, a much bigger player than Maria Chin was.
And she brings something with her, a sketch.
A drawing of the eye that Xavier saw.
So the Tremere knew. They knew something was out there.
They do something. She admits that they don't know what it is, which, coming from a Tremere, is terrifying. That's like the CIA admitting they have no intel. But they've linked the sketch to a specific individual, a sculptor in Atlanta named Leopold.
Atlanta, the heart of the Sabbat's new territory, where Victoria just escaped from.
Exactly. All roads are leading back to Atlanta.
So Jane and Garlett, reeling from all these failures, they hatch a new plan, a desperate one. They need someone to go back into the Hornet's Nest. Someone has to go to Sabbat-controlled Atlanta and find this mysterious sculptor, Leopold. And who do they volunteer for this suicide mission?
Victoria Ash, of course.
That feels punitive. That feels like they're trying to get rid of her.
Oh, it absolutely is. Jan wants her gone because she's a distraction, a political rival, a wild card he can't control. Garlett wants to punish her for the friction she caused with Finn. It's a way for them both to solve a problem.
And Victoria, she accepts. Why in the world would she go back there? She barely escaped with her life the first time.
It's a huge question. Maybe it's for revenge. Maybe it's for closure. Or, more likely, she realizes that if she stays in Baltimore, she will always just be a pawn being moved around the board by John and Garlett. If she goes to Atlanta and finds the truth about this eye,
She becomes a queen.
or at least a player again, it's a desperate move, but it's her only move to regain some power.
So she leaves. And we're left with the aftermath, the state of play at the end of these accounts.
And it's grim. Baltimore is completely isolated. The Gangrel have left the building. The Sabbat is closing in. The sacrifice of Buffalo was a catastrophic failure that only revealed a traitor in their midst.
And the leadership, John and Garlett, is fracturing under the weight of paranoia and failure.
It's a pretty bleak ending for this stack of sources.
It is, but it's an honest one. It really strips away all the glamour and the romance of the vampire mythos, doesn't it?
Completely. We started this thinking, oh, cool, vampire politics. But looking at it now, the good guys, the Camarilla, they're just the bad guys with better suits and better PR.
They're monsters of structure and order.
And the Sabbat are monsters of chaos and fanaticism. But at the end of the day, they all feed on the innocent to survive.
And the real tragedy, the thing that sticks with me, is that the Ventrue's greatest strength, their obsession with order, with structure, with their rational view of the world, is the very thing that's dooming them.
Precisely. They are so rigid, so obsessed with their hierarchy and with reality as they define it, that they are incapable of seeing the mystical, world-ending threat that is coming to eat them all.
They're fighting a political war over territory while an ancient god is waking up to destroy the entire game board.
It's like they're meticulously rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, but the deck chairs are made of human lives and the iceberg is a giant malevolent eyeball.
A horrifying image, but a very, very accurate one.
It is.
So, okay, what does this all mean for us, for you listening to this? What's the takeaway?
I think it raises a really provocative question about leadership, especially in a time of crisis. We all like to think that in an emergency, the adults in the room will take charge, that they have a plan, that they know what they're doing.
But here, the plan was sacrifice the weak and deny the inconvenient truth.
Exactly. So here's the final thought to mull over. If the leaders of your society decided to sacrifice an entire city just to buy themselves a few weeks of time, and they still failed, who is the real monster? The Sabbat, with their shovels and their open monstrosity, or the Ventrue with their maps and their cold, calculated cruelty?
That is something to chew on. The Sabbat might tear you apart, but the Ventrue will spend your life like $1 and call it a sound investment.
And they'll call it efficiency.
Man, okay. That is where we are going to leave it for this deep dive. Victoria is heading back into the fire. Jan is alone in the dark with his paranoia and his guilt, and the Eye is watching. If you want to find out if Victoria survives Atlanta for a second time, you'll have to dig into the next stack of sources with us. But for now, thanks for listening. Keep your eyes open.
Well, watch your back.
See you next time.